Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being with us today to discuss how to speed up deployment of broadband services. There are a number of legislative proposals before us today, but I'd like to take a step back and further examine the challenges to broadband deployment. Addressing these challenges will allow states and providers to implement federal broadband funding. Through the bipartisan infrastructure law, Congress invested in historic $65 billion to build out our country's broadband infrastructure. This established the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program for states to expand high-speed services to their communities. This program will ensure that even the most rural and hard-to-reach communities, like many in my district in New Hampshire, have access to broadband. Mr. Falcon, you spoke about how deploying this scale of infrastructure will be a major endeavor for many small communities. How should Congress ensure local governments are equipped to meet this challenge?
Thank you for that question. What it boils down to is providing the resources for personnel to kind of meet this surge of demand. This is going to be a very intense but short period of years where these projects will come in large volume, and once constructed, given that the guidance is to deploy fiber, we will not be revisiting these anytime in the near future. So it's really just a matter of the surge of demand and ensuring the resources are available there for them to meet that demand when it comes.
Thank you. Now, I know that local governments will play an important role in bringing high-speed broadband service to the communities. While this hearing focuses on the deployment of broadband, these services will still be out of reach for families that can't afford them. The Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP, is established by the bipartisan infrastructure law to provide assistance to eligible households to help them afford internet services. This program has already connected over 16 million Americans to internet services, including many, many families in my district. Unfortunately, funding for the ACP is set to run out without congressional action. Mr. O'Reilly, you briefly spoke about the importance of addressing broadband affordability. Can you elaborate on why funding the ACP should be a high priority this Congress?
So as I mentioned to the ranking member of the full committee, I do support ACP. I believe it's important to address affordability component. There are a number of families in America, certainly in New Hampshire, that won't be able to afford service without such a program. I think we crossed the 17 million threshold in terms of people, families that are taking advantage of the funding. So I think it is something that has to be addressed if you're trying to figure out how to serve all Americans. If I could just return briefly to your previous question. Sure. I've spent a great deal of time in New Hampshire in past life. I will tell you the local governments there are really sharp. And I don't know that they need necessarily the resources. It's really the areas, especially in the North Country and the western part that you represent, that attracting, having the subsidy that's going to come forward to actually serve those areas throughout. That's probably more important to me in terms of New Hampshire, in terms of the local governments who are actually pretty, they're very small and they do represent the people very well.
Well, we're lucky we have a lot of volunteers that get involved in these committees who are very knowledgeable. As co-chair of the Rural Broadband Caucus, I'm committed to ensuring that communities can connect to broadband services. It's critical that Congress not only address the challenges to deploying broadband, but also work to make these services more affordable. The bipartisan infrastructure law set our country on a path to close the digital divide, and I look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to continue this work.